5th Hour Radio Show.
So, Nikita, can you tell us a little bit about your beginnings? It's my understanding you had to overcome some adversity, especially earlier in life, before the opportunity of becoming a wrestler ever came into the picture.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on the show. Thank you. Very honored to be here. Always fun to tell a little bit of my story. Obviously, we limit the time. We can't cover the whole thing, but that said, when the door prior to the door opportunity of wrestling opened up, I was from a young age had my sights set on playing in the NFL, like many young men in America, playing football in the NFL, and at a very young age embraced weightlifting at the age of 12, and then from there embraced the idea of playing football, and had a good high school career, a great college career. Played on some really great championship teams, but along the way, a couple of setbacks, some adversity. My freshman year, when I broke my lower leg, it really literally in half. Some who are football historians will remember the now known as the Theismann fracture. I did that my freshman year, rehabilitated, came back from that, played 3 more years of football, only in a game after catching a pass. Got tackled in a kind of a weird way and broke my other leg, the lower leg, in half. And so 2 defining moments, I guess you would say, in my life. That the first one being, leg shattered, life shattered, dream shattered, but determined to come back, I did. And then the second one, because I had recovered from one, had the confidence to recover from the second one, and was actually training for a pro football tryout when the phone call came and the question was asked, you're interested in becoming a pro wrestler, and that led up to that door opening.
Now, who was that gave you the call? If I'm right, it was the Animal, right?
It was Road Warrior Animal. We kind of twist and turn the way life's journey has. I recruited him to our college to play football back when he graduated high school, and he was actually approached by Don Kernodle, and the question posed was, "Hey, Animal, do you know any big guys who wouldn't mind shaving their head and become a fascist?" And that was basically the question, and he, without hesitation, he goes, "Man, I know the guy right now. He's up in Minnesota at a gym training for a football tryout," and of course he made the phone call and shared the vision, you might say, or the storyline with.
So what was it like in the tryout when you first went there to see if you could make it in the sport? I mean, was you a natural at it, or did you have to work at it a little bit?
Interesting word, because it wasn't a tryout. I called, when Animal called, I said, "Well, what do I have to do?" He said, "Well, call this promoter in Charlotte, Jim Crockett." I asked him, I said, does he know I've got no amateur wrestling background and no professional training? I mean, zip, none, zero. He goes, "Yeah, I told him." So he didn't care. So I called Jim Crockett and literally had a 5-minute conversation, sight unseen, with him on the phone. And again, told him up front, "Now, Mr. Crockett, you understand, no training here, no background, no wrestling. I'm a football guy." And he basically, I'm guessing if we could have FaceTime or Skype then like we do now, he didn't bat an eye. He just said, "Be in my office on this day with your head shaved." I said, "Oh, okay." Called Animal back, told him. He goes, "Hey, I'd love to get you swing through Atlanta." And that's where he was down there with him and Hawk, Georgia Championship Wrestling. He said, "Swing through Atlanta. I'll get you some tights and boots. Pick it up on your way to Charlotte." I said, "Okay." And so literally swung through, picked that up, drove into a city I'd never been before. Talk about taking a leap of faith, right? Had everything I owned to my name in my car and a few $100 in my wallet, and walked into Jim Crockett's office, took a look at me, said, "Wait here," walked out, walked in with 2 guys, the World Tag Team Champions, Ivan Koloff, Don Kernodle, and Nikita Koloff was born that day. They literally put me right on the interview set with those 2 guys for about 4 or 5 hours.
Now, I'm not quite sure about how it is today in professional wrestling, but back in the day, you pretty much had to be a Russian in and out of the ring, right? You had to stay in character all the time.
Well, you didn't have to be. It wasn't requested of you. I chose to be. I chose to legally change my name. I chose to study some of the Russian language and learn how to sign my name in Russian. I did all that by choice. I was not asked to do that. I chose to do that. But believing, understanding that, I felt like if I did that, it would help get the character over that much more, which, if history is evidence, if we can learn from history, essentially, I believe it did get the character over. So that was all chosen on my part.
Now, did you ever have any problems outside of the ring being a professional wrestler? Did you ever have people coming up to you, being the heel at first, trying to start problems with you as a wrestler?
Not really. I think I accomplished the intimidation factor that I established on television, even outside the ring, and so never had any real altercations. The only altercations I had with fans actually were about a half a dozen times in the ring when they tried to jump on me. They had a few too many bottles of courage and tried to attack me in the ring. And when the security kind of figured it out, it wasn't part of the deal, and they grab them and arrest them and take them away. But was so more in the ring than out, ironically.
And that's something I wanted to ask you. Like, when something like that happens, you're in there wrestling, and you got a match going on, and a fan does jump the turnbuckle and jumps in there. How do you handle that? I mean, you could definitely rip that person apart. Do you have to show restraint or what?
Well, back in the old school days, they came over the barricade. They were fair game. As time has progressed on and our society has, no surprise to any of us knows, has become as litigious as it is, you now, in today's day and time, wouldn't defend yourself nearly the same way. You would have to show a lot more restraint than you would have in those days. In those days, you had the right to defend yourself, of course, not knowing whether they had any weapons in their hands, and plenty of stories. Ole Anderson has a scar all the way across the front of his chest from a fan who took a knife to him, trying to make his way from the ring to the dressing room. So there was a day when you did have to defend yourself. Security wasn't as tight, etc. But not anymore. You better not do. You're going to get sued if you do that. If you do anything, you're going to get sued. You blink an eye at it,
So after having your Hall of Fame career, with stints of being the bad guy, you were a good guy. You've heard the jeers, you've heard the cheers. What made you walk away from wrestling and eventually turn your life over to Christ?
Well, it was when I was a child, going back to my childhood, my early dreams of becoming, a pro athlete. One thing that always kind of bugged me, or was a pet peeve for me personally, was the athlete that hung around that didn't know when to say when and when to walk away. That was just a personal thing, and I always said to myself, man, when I make it, I'm going to leave on top of the game. I'm going to walk away as the champion. That was my vision for myself. So when I broke into wrestling, I literally, that's what I told the guys. So I told Don and Ivan, they're like, no, you won't. You won't get in your blood. You'll wrestle for the next 25 years. I'm like, no, I won't. I'll be done by the time I'm 35. As far as active wrestling is concerned, I may still be around the business, but I won't be putting the tights on. And so, I'm a big believer in setting goals and written goals. And of course, I achieved that goal a little over a year ahead of that plan. I was just getting ready to turn 34 when I made a decision to officially retire. So I walked away by choice. A lot of rumors floating around. Well, he was injured. He couldn't go back. Not true. I did get injured in my last match, but it wasn't career-ending. I chose to walk away, and many have coined me, again, for the football historian, many have coined me as the Barry Sanders of pro wrestling. So as unique as I broke into the business, I walked away heading into, for many, what would be really the peak of a career by choice.
Now, did you ever have those people in your life that sort of mocked your decision to become a Christian? I know did you hear about Nikita? He's a Jesus freak now. I'm just curious because I know a lot of people who've went through that when they turned their life over to Jesus.
Yeah, well, and I guess that's part two of your previous question. I'll tie these two together. Giving my life to Christ, becoming a Christ follower. I didn't grow up in a church. I grew up, believing there was God, but I knew of him, just didn't know him. Just at least didn't know him personally, but I knew of him, believed in him, just didn't know him. And after I left wrestling and searching on this quest for what life held next, I concluded I was successful. Many people's eyes, the multiple world champion, wore multiple belts around my waist, traveled all over the world, had all this quote fame, and yet something was still missing. And 17 October 1993, wrestling match of a lifetime happened not in a squared circle, but in a church circle, in a squared church. And that's where I surrendered my heart. And then, of course, yes, to answer that question, I got the feedback, through the word, through the grapevine, especially within the wrestling community, just because of, how skeptical essentially every wrestler is. A lot of, and really more cynicism even than skepticism. But, oh yeah, I heard, Nikita's one of them Jesus guys now, one of them, And so I heard that, but it never affected me. I'm like, you know what, my life is transformed and changed, and I just pray for them and, whoever's floating them kind of things around. And of course, down the road, I've been blessed to see quite a few of those guys, or at least a number of those guys, end up realizing all the bling bling and all the trinkets and baubles and stuff that comes along with fame all still adds up to emptiness. And they all come to realize, something's still missing in my life too. And that's why you've seen a number of them anyway come to Christ as well now.
I seen a picture of you. It looked like you were about to be baptized, and it looked like to your right, holding your arm, was the $1 Million Man. Am I mistaken about that?
You are not. Actually, Ted DiBiase, myself, and Jason Sanders, the three of us went on actually a pilgrimage to Israel, and we were actually, that picture you saw was standing in the Jordan River, and that was a very very life impacting moment as we baptized one another in the Jordan. Again, just following in the footsteps of Jesus, and quite an honor as well to have Ted and Jason as the ones who were baptizing me, and then in turn baptizing Ted and us baptizing Jason. It was quite an emotional, life impacting moment, to say the least.
Yeah, I bet.
On that pilgrim. Yeah, on that pilgrim. I mean, it's one thing to be baptized; it's another thing. And I'll just tell you this real quick. It was our guides got us into this private baptismal site. So we had that baptismal for about an hour all to ourselves. We were just sharing the scriptures where John had baptized Jesus. It was a powerful, powerful hour that we spent together there at the Jordan River. It's incredible. Not to mention everything we saw in Israel was, oh my gosh, just can't even put it into words.
Mm-hmm. So was telling your story to people what you wanted to do from the beginning, I guess a better way to put that is, just how did your personal ministry start?
Well, I dove into my walk and my journey with the Lord head first. And anyone who gets to know me knows if I'm in, I'm all in. I'm not dipping my toe. I don't care what it is. If it was weightlifting, if it was football, if it was wrestling, when I surrendered my heart to the Lord. I mean, if I'm all in, if I'm in, I'm all in. That's just who I am. And so honestly, the first 5 years, I was discipled and mentored. Evangelist Terrence Rose from South Africa took me under his wing, began to disciple me. Tom Whidden, my pastor, Jay Stewart at the church where I surrendered my heart to the Lord. Jay has been my pastor since 1993, 21 years now almost, and so I was just the first few years just discipled and mentored. I wasn't going out there speaking and ministering, and in fact, I was going overseas to build churches and build Bible colleges and physically labor building these infrastructures and learning and growing and just serving and you know what Jesus said. I didn't come to be served, but I came to, or excuse me, I didn't come to to be served, but to serve. And that's what I began to do. And then doors of opportunity in 1998 really began to swing wide open. And then for the next 12 plus, really up to present day, began to travel now, having traveled to 26 different nations and others that are on the horizon that I'll be traveling to, just sharing my story and sharing the gospel message and preaching the word. It's been a fascinating journey for me.
You know, it has to be such a rewarding feeling, quite unlike any other, to go somewhere, to tell your story, to witness for Christ, and to move someone enough to walk that aisle and give their life to Jesus.
Yeah, it is. It's actually funny you say that. I just met with Pastor Jay, with my pastor on Thursday, and was sharing with him, you know, because I wear a number of different hats, all under the banner of ministry now. I mean, health and wellness. I do a lot of coaching and mentoring and people with their physical health. Lex Luger and I, Lex has become, just talked to him for an hour today on my drive. He and I are become best of friends, and I've been able to disciple him since 2006 when he surrendered his life, and we were just discussing the reward and the privilege of ministering. And I was sharing with Pastor Jay how everything I do is incredibly rewarding. Obviously, the most is what you just said, sharing the gospel, sharing my story, and then seeing somebody else like last weekend, actually about 10 people last weekend who raised their hand and said, "This is my day to drive a stake in the ground and surrender my life," is incredibly, without fail, the most rewarding thing that I have ever done.
So what's on the horizon for you right now? Any big news or events coming up?
Well, I mean, 2014 has been an interesting year of transition for me. I you know, in the past, as I was saying, I was traveling about 40, 45 weekends a year, ministering in churches and all different venues, whether it was, you know, youth events like a ministry called the Choir of the Fire with Ron Luce, or I'm partnered with a ministry called Fellowship of the Sword, where we just take a small group of men up onto the mountaintop and minister to them unplugged for a few days and just minister and pour into them and send them back. You know, our hope is we send them back to their communities, back to their homes, back to their churches as, you know, better men of God, more godly fathers, godly husbands. And so I'm involved in that. Like I said, the health and wellness, and traveling actually right now down to Louisiana to work with and coach up and mentor some people down there in the area of health and wellness, and doing a lot of that. Lex has actually partnered with me on that as well, with our nutrition company, and so it's just fun. This transition has taken me more into the marketplace where I can have more one-on-one interaction with individuals, as opposed to, and don't get me wrong, I'm still, you know, last weekend I was at the pulpit on Sunday morning preaching at 9 and 11, and, you know, as a guest speaker and, you know, evangelizing. So I still do that as well. I've just scaled that back, and the Lord has transitioned me more into one-on-one ministry, marketplace ministry, just meeting the needs of individuals, and whatever that looks like. You know, whether it be spiritual or emotional, mental, financial, physical, there's a whole encompassing, or I say, array of avenue that I have now to be able to help guide someone along in their own journey. So it's really, really exciting for me.
You know, as we wrap this interview up, we always ask one question to our guest, and I'm going to ask you that right now. What's something no one knows about Nikita Koloff, besides the fact that you're not really Russian? That kind of threw me for a loop at first.
Well, that would be the obvious one, wouldn't it? Wait a minute, that guy's mastered the English language.
Yes,
man.
he has. I mean, he's very fluent.
I remember back in the day. It's funny too, because I still, even with the advent of the internet, I still have people that will come to me and go, "Dude, you're not really from Russia? And I'm like, no, I'm not. They're waiting for the guy who talks like this. I'm going to tear your head right off your body. Right? That's what they're expecting. And they walk in and they hear me talk, fluent English. Like, whoa, hold on, who is this guy, right? So, wow, that's a good question you posed. It really is. You know what? What's something that
yeah, I mean, do you consider yourself a cook of a dish that you're the best at? I mean, if you have a get together somewhere, are you the one cooking? Are you the one grilling?
I do. I actually do enjoy. It's funny you bring that up. I do. I don't consider myself in any way any kind of a master chef, but I do enjoy cooking. When the girls, when my children were younger, I used to do a lot of the evening dishes anyway. They make up their lunches for school, and I used to have fun doing all that. But more than anything, again, there's, I guess, a number of different things I could say. But 43 years later, I'm still have the passion that I had when I first started. Lifting weights and just wanting to help people. I guess the transition I'm in, my brother, the transition I'm in now, I've really come to that place where, and this is significant for me. There's a lot of markers in life that we can look back at and go, okay, that was a defining moment for me. So was that. Obviously, 17 October was a defining moment for me. 11th of March, 2006, on a ranch in South Texas, on an event called Quest, was a defining moment for me. But I'm at that place now in my journey, where at one time in my life it was my world and you were just living in it. I've really come to the realization I'm just fortunate to have the breath of life today, and so I'm really focused on giving back and pouring back into other people. And so for those who maybe don't know that about me, that's where my heart is at today. One, seeing them, spiritually healthy, that I can have the opportunity to spend eternity with them because they surrendered their heart. And then, but I'll tell you that, till that happens, that they can have every other aspect of their life healthy as well, and just be a whole person, and live life to its fullest and enjoy this journey. I'll tell you this, then I'll turn it back to you. I tell my children time and time and time again, life is indeed a journey. Make it an adventure and create wonderful memories along the way. And that's what I hope even the listeners today, if your life is not in that place where you recognize this is a journey, filled with ups and downs, highs and lows, but it is an adventure. And let's focus not on the negative, but let's focus on the positive and just create some wonderful memories along the way. And if one person out there listening to my story makes that shift, that mental shift, or that transition, then man, this interview time was more worth it than anything.
I can't think of a better way to end the show. Before we get off here, though, tell people where they can go as far as website and social media to get more information about you and stuff we just don't have time to cover.
Well, certainly NikitaKoloff.com, and so, NikitaKoloff, NikitaKoloff.com. They can certainly read a lot more about the story. There's 3 books that I've written that are out there available, on Amazon, and the latest one is my life story called A Tale of the Ring and Redemption. And then on Twitter, on Instagram, they can look me up on Twitter, Nikita Koloff, the number 1 behind it, and I think the same for Instagram. But so I'm connected into the social media. Try to. I'll say this: I believe, it's just me, and maybe you've heard this before, but I truly believe that the wrestling fan it has to be one of the most all-time loyal fans out there on the planet today. It's amazing. I was in New Jersey a few weeks ago doing a Legends autograph signing, and a guy had flown in from Japan, had a Japanese wrestling magazine with me on the cover back from the 80s that he had brought, that he wanted me to sign. That's why he came from Japan to New Jersey for me to sign that thing. And I was like, talk about being humble.
Oh, yeah.
Just the loyalty of the wrestling fan. I'm so grateful to the fans out there who really made my career and continue to just show their support and by coming out to events like that, and just incredibly humbled by that. So thank you to all the wrestling fans out there. Connect with me on social media, look me up, and email me through my website, and would love to hear I'd love to hear your story of maybe a memory that I created for you in my wrestling days. So thank you again for having me on. It's been a true honor.
The 25th Hour Radio Show.